projects here in the second half, and we begin with Cady Butcher. Cady is a member of National Honor Society, Nu Alpha Theta, and a longtime volunteer of Cabell Huntington Hospital. She's played soccer for Huntington High School all 4 years, and is a self-described nerd in every aspect. In the fall, Cady plans to attend Vanderbilt University to study biological sciences and creative writing. Cady then plans to pursue a career in medicine.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to thank y'all for coming out and listening to our presentations today. I know all of us have worked really hard on them for the past year or so, and I'm really thankful for all of you guys to be here to witness the fruits of our labor. So to start, I want you guys to think about something for me. Most people have a defining episodic memory from their childhood. In my case, it was the moment that I learned how to read. Not necessarily the process, but the exact moment that I first looked at splotches of ink on remnants of dead trees, and they somehow meant something beyond the physical reality. It was a momentous occasion, starring a toddler, her father, a brown couch, and several of these tiny little Dick and Jane books scattered all over the place. It wasn't necessarily the most complex literature, but it accomplished its purpose. I could see Jane run without witnessing the event of a girl dashing down the street, which a lot of times was me. So, my name is Cady Butcher, and I am a reader. I know all of the stereotypes that accompany that statement, and most of them are probably true. I've grown up with my nose firmly stuck in every single book that I could get my hands on. Did you know that you could actually get in trouble for reading too much in school? I found that one out the hard way. Books have always had a huge impact on my life and how I chose to spend my time, and I found such enjoyment delving into these fantasy worlds where literally anything is possible. However, it is not the only influence that I have tended to. My parents have always been a great inspiration to me, particularly my mother. We share a love of medicine and biological science, which I, as Ms. Matt said before, I plan to pursue as a career. My nose was in her physiology textbooks just as often as it was in fantasy novels, and for my entire schooling career, I've worked towards getting into good colleges, getting into these programs that would allow me to pursue medicine. However, unlike many of my peers, I could not leave my love of reading behind, and I carried it with me all throughout that time, and I became a walking oxymoron. When the peas in a pod relationship of math and science seemed to dominate everything and become the standard norm, how do you reconcile a relationship with reading and literature? I always felt like I had to choose one or the other and had to leave the unfortunate one behind when considering my future careers and also this project. I struggled to choose which one to take. I felt as if I could only pick one when I really wanted to do both. And based on the title of my presentation, I'm sure you guys can surmise where this is going. When I started to brainstorm project ideas, I decided not to choose one or the other, but rather to reconcile the two halves of my passions in a way that I had not seen anyone else do so before. It was, after all, titled a passion project, and I could not stay true to my passions by rejecting half of them. Thus begins an origin story. When I was a 6th grader at Huntington Middle School, my English class created 4 little free libraries for St. Mary's, Cabell Huntington Hospital, Huntington Middle School, and Southside Elementary. These things were filled with love, and we put our heart and soul into them as little 12-year-olds always do with little art projects. We painted these, we designed them, and they were so much fun to make. Some of these also star as my fellow honors program members, and some of them are veterans who have graduated from the program. But I just found such enjoyment in doing these and stacking these books with stories that I loved and I wanted other people to experience as well. Flash forward several years later, when I was in 9th grade. volunteer in the hospital in various departments. This, of course, was pre-COVID, so we were allowed to access patient areas such as Hoops Children's Family Hospital, which is where I chose as my assignment. I did this for several reasons. One was that I was interested in seeing what pediatrics was like as I was thinking about pursuing that. And I also wanted to see what had become of our beloved little free library cart that we had donated there. And when I got there, I saw the cart. However, it had been transformed into a toy cart because all of the books that were on there could not be sanitized properly in between patient use, and the books had to be discarded, which made me very sad because I love reading. And so, as part of my project, I wanted to bring the books back to Huntington Hospital, specifically Hoops Children's Family Hospital. So how exactly was I going to do this? Well, I knew that books could not be sanitized properly. However, Hoops Family Children's Hospital has resources such as movies and video games that they also use for patient entertainment and patient use, and those are easily able to be sanitized in between. So I knew I had to do something electronic that would allow for protection, but also to keep everybody safe. And so I decided that I was going to try to get a bunch of devices filled with ebooks and audiobooks for patient use. So my original idea was tablets, but that's not exactly where we ended up going with this. And instead, we used 5 Chromebooks that are loaded with ebooks and audiobooks. So I did this project in conjunction with Hoops as well as the Cabell County Public Library. And what we did is we have 5 Chromebooks that are completely locked down so they cannot be used to internet search or anything. They can only access the library database. And so what we did is we loaded the books on with ebooks and audiobooks from that database, and then we donated them for use in the Hoops Center for patients to use and be able to read, which is something that they have never been able to do before as a hospital-provided activity. If patients wanted to read, they had to have their parents bring in books or had to rely on continuous donations and continually give out books. So even though Hoops has resources such as video games and movies, why are books specifically so important? Well, for one, books provide something that video games and movies cannot. For example, if patients have concussions or head injuries, as I did my sophomore year, they will not be able to watch the flashing lights or to listen to all the sounds that the movies and video games create, as it gives too many headaches, it's just not feasible, it doesn't work. And so the same issue is had for children with motor issues who may not be able to use a controller at present time if their arm is broken or whatever. And you can only watch so many movies before you get tired of them. And so without any form of entertainment, these patients are quite literally left alone in a sterilized, unfamiliar room with nothing to entertain themselves with, which can contribute to a very negative mindset, which can amplify negative stress. And this is where the research comes in. According to a scientific study reported by Dr. Gowan and Dr. Glazer from Ohio State University, psychological stress can directly influence wound healing processes. And by having a negative mindset, the patients can actually not heal as well or not have as fast of a recovery time as patients who are in a better environment. So the effects of this negative stress include like a decreased immune system. It includes a higher, it also works to amplify pain because of this amazing thing the brain has called, because of this amazing power the brain has to focus and to compartmentalize different things that they are, different sensations that it is receiving, specifically called selective attention. When the brain is focused on something, it can dull the senses and numb everything else. So when there is nothing to distract and nothing to entertain, the only sensation that the brain can focus on is the available pain and the available stress that whatever the patient is going through is causing. So, positive mindsets lead to better healing. According to an article from B. Kenny, the power of positive thinking in recovery, positive thinking directly leads to a higher chance of recovery in patients. Which, this includes positive mindsets, this includes positive outlooks, this includes simply having a hope or having an inspiration to keep going and keep fighting for the future. Which leads to why books provide this for patients. According to Dr. Johansen, a Danish professor at the University of Southern Denmark, he argues for literature's emotional impact and that feelings are all important to the function of literature. He states that literature has, because of language, the capacity to create fictional worlds that in many respects are similar to and related to the world in which we live. One of the most important reasons for our emotional engagement in literature is our empathy with others and our constant imagining and hypothesizing of possible developments in our interactions with them. Hence, we understand and engage ourselves in fictional worlds. And anyone who has read a book can understand this kind of theory. When we read about our main character, our hero, who goes through all of these different trials to emerge victorious, imagine how inspirational that can be to a cancer patient fighting their own battles. It contributes to our sense of escapism, where we may have something negative going on in our lives and in our circumstances, but we can always retreat to this happy world where that isn't occurring, and instead the hero is victorious in all of their endeavors. So children can be like the heroes they read and know and experience and defeat their circumstances and grow from them. Additionally, books also develop this sense of community, which helps to battle the isolation that is found, especially now with hospital environments trying to keep everybody sterilized. Books have a way of bringing people together. For example, if I say, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. Most people recognize that as the first line of Harry Potter, which a lot of our generation has grown up and has read and has fond memories of as children. Additionally, if I say to be or not to be, a lot of people probably just had angry flashbacks of essays assigned by English lit teachers from just a few weeks ago. So, I wanted to bring these book backs to Huntington Hospital. And it took a while. So, I went through the recesses of my email and found where I first started branching out and seeing if my project was feasible. And that was in March of 2020, when I first started thinking about it. I was volunteering on the floor, and I had talked to several nurses and doctors up there, and I had asked for their opinions and their thoughts, and they loved the idea and wanted me to pursue it more. And so I started sending emails out. This one in particular was to the head of volunteering that I was underneath to see if she could help me in any way. So, thus begins a long train of emails that went absolutely nowhere. And, okay, until I finally got a response in December of 2021, which is about a year and a half after I started branching out, which of course there were setbacks because of COVID, but still, it took a very long time. This email actually did not go anywhere, and I had to rely on a response a month later from these lovely people. And so this is when I first partnered with the Cady County Public Library and started working together with them. And thus, between the months of January and April, I was involved in several meetings, several email chains, and a bunch of interactions between the two, trying to get everything organized, trying to get everything secure and safe for the patients, and trying to get the right software that was needed. And on April 7th, 2022, we finally got these Chromebooks into Duke's Family Children's Hospital. And it was only thanks to the joint efforts of the Cady County Public Library, Duke's Family Children's Hospital, and God himself that they got there. So, these Chromebooks contained, I was able to see the Chromebooks before they were distributed up there, and so I saw that they contained books like Wonder from R.J. Palacio, and they also contained Percy Jackson and Narnia, and Harry Potter and Dr. Seuss, and books for children of all age levels to enjoy, and just a whole age range, which was something that the hospital was lacking in, because Hoop's family is a children's hospital, but children also include 17-year-olds who may not find entertainment in routine games of Candyland as often as 5-year-olds do. So despite the many roadblocks in my path, I never stopped pushing for this project to go through. And during this process, I developed the virtue of perseverance and learned the art of email spamming. And the grandest lesson of this takes me back to when I was very little, looking for books to read. The story is never over. There is always another chapter that is yet to be read, or a sequel that is coming soon. In the real world, there is never a true ending. There are legacies and what people leave behind and how people share their memory. Not even death can touch the power of memory and the imprint we make in our communities. The stories get read and reread by the people that they were made for. I am a reader, and if at any point in your life you've picked up a book and found yourself whisked to another world, you are too.
In your bio, you mentioned focusing in college on both the biological sciences and on reading and literature. What from this project do you think you'll carry with you in terms of guiding kind of that?
Probably that it's possible to do both, and I'll just have to keep reminding myself of that, because I've never, through this project, I was actually looking for sources of inspiration to take with me to merge the two, and I found Michael Crichton, who is the author of the famous Jurassic Park series, was actually an MD when he wrote the books. And I found a lot of inspiration from that it is possible to merge the two worlds and use both at the same time. And there are countless stories of doctors who are also actors, who also use the arts as a way to, the medical field can be very difficult at some times, and so a lot of doctors use the arts as a way to distract from that and a way to help their mental health a lot, which I think is very important. And it wasn't until I actually got a little flyer from Vanderbilt that I actually considered doing both. I didn't think that was an option, and so yeah, just the fact that I've done it before and I can do it again.
Our next presenters, Ella Adkins and Ben McElroy. Ella is one of the captains of the Huntington High Speech and Debate Team, as well as the secretary of the International Thespian Society. Aside from those, she's highly involved in her youth group and youth worship team. She is National Honor Society, student government, and Nu Alpha Theta members. In the fall, Ella will attend Marshall University to study communications, sciences, and disorders. She will be a member of their inaugural Early Assurance Program. Ben McElroy is the student body president, National Honor Society president, Latin Club president, West Virginia Junior Classical League state president, and one of the debate team captains. He is also a member of Honors Program, Nu Alpha Theta, the varsity baseball team, and Empower HHS. Outside of school, Ben is an assistant coach to Huntington Middle School baseball in Babe Ruth, as well as a certified umpire in West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. Ben has also served at St. Joseph Catholic Church since he was in 3rd grade as an altar server. Ben plans to attend Marshall University this fall and major in criminal justice and pre-law. Ben and Ella's project encompasses Huntington High students, Career Technical Center students, and the community.